My hand rested protectively on my stomach as I pushed through the glass doors of Silvercrest Private Bank. The blast of air conditioning hit my overheated skin like a slap. But the chill I felt wasn't just from the temperature, it was from the stares. Every pair of eyes in that marble-floored hall turned toward me with the same expression, disgust mixed with suspicion. I was everything this place rejected, a pregnant omega without a ring, without an alpha, without the polished veneer of wealth that seemed to be the only acceptable entry requirement. I kept my chin up, forcing myself to walk forward even as my worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. My black hoodie and faded jeans screamed out of place among the designer suits and luxury handbags. But I had every right to be here. I had money, real, legally earned money, and an account that predated my current circumstances. "Excuse me." The voice came from a blonde receptionist whose smile was colder than the AC. "Can I help you find something? The homeless shelter is 3 blocks east." Heat flooded my cheeks. "I'm here to make a deposit into my account." Her eyes traveled from my face to my small but visible baby bump, then back up again with barely concealed revulsion. "This is Silvercrest Private Bank. We require documentation, references, and verification for all transactions. Do you have those things?" My jaw clenched. "I already have an account here. Avery Fletcher. I've been a client for 2 years." Her plastic smile somehow became even more artificial. "Oh, well, perhaps you should try the customer service window around the corner. This area is reserved for our premium clients." Premium, code word for rich, for alphas, for people who belonged in places like this. Unlike a struggling pregnant omega who was barely keeping his head above water. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. My scent blockers were weaker than usual today. I couldn't afford the expensive prescription-strength ones anymore. Maybe that's why several people nearby were wrinkling their noses, or maybe it was just my presence that offended them. "Look, I just need to..." I started, pulling out the envelope of cash I'd earned from my latest freelance design project. "Are you seriously trying to deposit cash?" Another voice cut in, sharp and deliberately loud. A middle-aged beta woman in an expensive blazer had materialized beside the receptionist, her tone designed to carry across the entire hall. "Where exactly did that money come from? What kind of arrangement are we looking at here?" The implication hung in the air like poison. My face burned hotter. Around us, conversations died as people turned to watch the spectacle. "I'm a freelance graphic designer," I said, hating how my voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "This is payment from a client. It's legitimate income, right?" "Freelance?" She used air quotes, her lip curling. "We all know what that means. Pregnant omega, no alpha, cash payments, security." She snapped her fingers like I was some kind of criminal. "We need to escort this individual out before..." The doors opened, everything stopped. The scent hit first, cedar wood and smoke, rich and overwhelming, carrying a wave of pure alpha dominance that made every person in the hall freeze mid-motion. Phones lowered. Conversations ceased. Heads turned in unison toward the entrance. He walked in like he owned the place. Because he did. Tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored black suit, with dark hair styled with casual precision and steel-gray eyes that could cut through glass. Ashford Kane. I'd seen his picture on the bank's website when I first opened my account, but photographs hadn't captured the sheer presence of the man. He was the chairman, the owner, the most powerful alpha in the entire building. Those gray eyes swept across the hall and locked onto me. Something shifted in his expression. Something I couldn't quite read. His nostrils flared slightly as if catching a scent, and his entire body went rigid with sudden tension. "Out." His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. I felt my stomach drop. He meant me. Of course he meant me. I was being thrown out of my own bank by the chairman himself. "Everyone in this hall who just participated in disrespecting this client," Ashford continued, his tone dropping even lower, "consider your accounts frozen, effective immediately." The silence that followed was absolute. Stunned. Then chaos erupted. "Sir, you can't be serious," the blonde receptionist started. I said frozen. Now his voice carried the unmistakable weight of an alpha command. The kind that made every instinct in my omega body want to submit. Every single account. Every person who stared, who whiffered, who made this client feel unwelcome in my establishment. He moved toward me, and I instinctively took a step back. His presence was overwhelming, not threatening, but so intense that my body didn't know how to react. He stopped a respectful distance away, not crowding my space before turning to address the receptionist who had first insulted me. "What exactly did you say to this person?" Each word was coated in ice. Her face had gone pale. "Sir, I was simply following proper procedures." "Your procedures involve publicly humiliating a pregnant individual, questioning their income, making insinuations about their character based on their appearance?" His eyebrow lifted. "Is that what I'm paying you to do?" "And no, sir, I didn't mean." "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out and mail you your belongings." He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The finality in his tone was absolute. She started to protest, to beg, but two security guards were already moving toward her. The beta woman who had suggested I was some kind of escort went pale as death, shrinking back as Ashford's gaze found her next. I stood frozen, feeling like I'd accidentally wandered into someone else's life. This couldn't be real. Powerful alphas didn't defend struggling omegas. They didn't fire their own employees over people like me. There had to be a catch, an angle, something that would make this make sense. Ashford finally turned to face me fully, and when our eyes met, I saw something unexpected in his expression. Not pity, not condescension, something softer almost, protective. "Are you all right?" His voice had completely changed, gentle now. Concerned, I couldn't find my voice. I just nodded. "Your name?" "Avery." I managed. "Avery Fletcher." "Avery." He repeated it like he was memorizing it, like it mattered. "What happened to you here was unacceptable. I'll personally ensure nothing like this ever happens again. I was just trying to deposit my money," I said, finally finding my voice. "I didn't mean to cause a scene." "You didn't cause anything. They did." He gestured to a terrified-looking receptionist at another station. "Take Mr. Fletcher to the Premier Lounge. Coffee, water, whatever he needs." And argued his account to Platinum Tier. "No fees, no charges." "Sir?" The new receptionist looked shocked. Then he looked back at me, and I saw something else flicker in those gray eyes. Recognition? No, that couldn't be right. We'd never met. "I need to speak with you," he said. "Privately. Please." Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. Powerful alpha. Pregnant omega. Private conversation. This was how bad situations started. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said carefully. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, maybe even respect for my caution. "I won't hurt you, Avery. I promise. But there's something we need to discuss. Something important." I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to run. But something in his expression held me in place, not his alpha presence, but the genuine plea in his eyes. Like whatever he needed to say was eating him alive. 5 minutes, I finally agreed. In the lounge where there are other people around. Relief washed over his features. "Thank you. That's fair." The Premier Lounge turned out to be a quiet space, with comfortable leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A staff member brought me water and decaf coffee without being asked, shooting nervous glances at Ashford like he might fire her for breathing wrong. We sat across from each other, and I realized I was gripping my water glass so tightly my knuckles had gone white. Ashford noticed too, his expression tightening with what looked like guilt. "I'm sorry," he started, "for scaring you. That wasn't my intention." "Then what was?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why defend me? Why freeze accounts and fire people? You don't know me." "No," he agreed quietly. "But I'd like to. And before you ask why, it's because..." He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "Where's your alpha, Avery?" The question felt like a punch to the gut. "That's none of your business." "You're right. I'm sorry." He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. "I'm handling this poorly. Let me start over. 4 months ago, were you in Manhattan?" My blood ran cold. "What? Manhattan. The Rains Hotel. 4 months ago." His eyes searched mine desperately. "Please, I need to know if it was you." "Oh God. Oh no, that night. That horrible, desperate night when my heat had come unexpectedly and Kyle had abandoned me to go clubbing with his friends. When I'd been alone in that hotel room, terrified and in pain until someone had knocked on the door. An alpha who'd smelled my distress and had helped me through it. who'd been gentle and careful and had disappeared before I woke up. I'd run the next morning too ashamed to face what I'd done, too terrified of what it meant that I'd let a stranger see me that vulnerable. How? My voice cracked. How do you know about that? Because I was there. His voice was raw, stripped of all pretense. I was the one who helped you. I left my number, left money for suppressants. Not as payment, God, never as payment, but because I thought you might need help. When I came back the next morning with breakfast, you were gone. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair, trying to process this impossible information. I've been looking for you ever since, Ashford continued, leaning forward with desperate intensity. Every private investigator I could hire, every contact I have, every resource at my disposal. I couldn't forget ye, Avery. Your voice, your scent, the way you looked at me when you were lucid enough to realize I was helping you, not taking advantage. I've never connected with anyone like that before. That's insane, I whispered. You can't build a connection from one night, especially not a night like that. I know how it sounds, but when I walked into this bank today and caught your scent, he stopped, swallowing hard. Your scent blockers are weak, and underneath them I could smell something that made my alpha instincts go absolutely wild. My hand moved instinctively to my stomach. His eyes tracked the movement. The baby, he said, his voice breaking. Avery, the baby's scent. It's mine. Cedarwood and smoke. The exact signature of an alpha parent. That child you're carrying is mine. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning and I couldn't get enough air, and this couldn't be happening. Breathe, Ashford said urgently, suddenly kneeling beside my chair. He didn't touch me, respecting my space, but his presence was grounding. Slowly, in and out. That's it. This can't be real, I gasped out when I could finally speak. This is some kind of mistake. It's not. I know it's not. The timing matches perfectly. And scent doesn't lie, Avery. That baby has my genetic markers. They're mine. Ours. The word felt too big, too overwhelming. I didn't know, I said, tears starting to fall. I swear I didn't know it was you. I didn't even know I was pregnant until 6 weeks later. And by then I had no way to find you. I tried to remember the room number, tried to contact the hotel, but they wouldn't give me any information. I believe you, he said softly. I'm not accusing you of anything. This isn't your fault. My ex-alpha, when I told him I was pregnant, he offered to pay for an abortion. The words tumbled out, bitter and sharp, like our baby was just a problem to be solved with money. When I refused, he blocked me. I haven't heard from him since. Ashford's expression turned dark, dangerous. He abandoned you, yes. So you'll forgive me if I don't trust alpha promises anymore. I wiped at my tears angrily. You say you want to be involved, that you've been looking for me, but what happens when reality sets in? When the baby cries all night, when being responsible for an omega and a child becomes inconvenient, then you'll see that I'm not like him, Ashford said firmly. I understand your fear. I understand why you don't trust me. But Avery, I'm asking you to give me a hand to prove myself. Let me be there for you. For our child. I don't need charity, I said automatically. This isn't charity, this is responsibility. This is... He paused, seeming to search for words. This is everything I've wanted since that night. I thought I'd lost you forever. Now I have a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it. I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception, any hint that this was too good to be true. All I saw was sincerity and a desperate hope that made my chest ache. I need time, I finally said, to think about this. To process. Take all the time you need. He stood, pulling out a business card and a pen. He wrote something on the back before handing it to me. My personal cell. Call me anytime, day or night, for any reason. If you need anything, money, food, medical care, just someone to talk to, please reach out. I took the card with shaking hands. One more thing, he said as I stood to leave. If anyone at this bank, or anywhere else, treats you with anything less than absolute respect, you call me immediately. You're important, Avery. You and our baby both. Important. When was the last time anyone had made me feel important? Okay, I whispered. His smile was small but genuine, full of relief and something that looked almost like joy. Okay. As I left the bank that day with a platinum account and a business card burning a hole in my pocket, I couldn't stop thinking, Maybe this alpha really was different. Maybe I could finally be safe. 3 days passed before I called him. 3 days of lying awake at night in my cramped studio apartment, listening to the radiator clank and feeling my baby move inside me while I tried to figure out if I was making a terrible mistake. The thing was, I'd done research. I'd looked up Ashford Kane, expecting to find some playboy alpha with a string of scandals. Instead, I found a man who'd built his business from the ground up after his father's death, who donated millions to omega rights organizations, who'd fired 3 executives last year for discrimination. His reputation was spotless. That scared me more than finding dirt would have. When I finally dialed his number, he answered on the first ring. Avery? His voice was breathless, hopeful. Hi, I said, suddenly feeling stupid. I hope I'm not bothering you. Never. You could never bother me. There was a pause. Are you all right? Do you need something? That was the thing about Ashford. He always assumed I was calling because I needed help, not because, well, I wasn't even sure why I was calling. I've been thinking, I started, about what you said, about wanting to be involved. Yes? He sounded almost afraid to hope. What does that look like? Realistically, do you want custody? Visiting rights? Financial support? I forced myself to ask the practical questions, even though part of me wanted to just trust the feeling in my gut that said he was genuine. I want whatever you're comfortable with, he said carefully. But ideally, I'd like to be a real father, present, involved. I want to go to doctor's appointments and help set up the nursery. I want to be there for the birth. I want our child to know me as their parent, not just some alpha who sends checks. Our child. He kept saying that, and each time it made something in my chest feel warm and terrified all at once. That's a lot, I said quietly. I know, and if it's too much, we can start smaller. But Avery, I need you to understand something. His voice grew more intense. I'm not offering this out of obligation. The moment I realized you were carrying my baby, something in me just clicked into place, like I'd been looking for you both my entire life without knowing it. That sounds like something from a romance novel, I said, trying to inject some lightness into the conversation. I know, but it's true. He paused. Can I see you? In person? We could have dinner, talk more about what you need and what I can offer. Warning bells went off again. I don't, somewhere public, he added quickly. Your choice of restaurant. And just talking, nothing more. I want to get to know you, Avery. The real you, not just the person you were during your heat. Something about the way he said it, like he genuinely wanted to know me as a person, made my defenses crack just a little. There's a small Italian place near my apartment. I heard myself say, Antonio's. Nothing fancy. That sounds perfect. When? Tonight? The word came out before I could second guess it. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. I could hear the smile in his voice. Thank you, Avery, for giving me this chance. After I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time, wondering what I'd just agreed to. Antonio's was quiet and dim, the kind of neighborhood place where everyone knew each other. I arrived early, too nervous to sit at home waiting, and grabbed a corner booth. Ashford showed up exactly at 7, and I almost didn't recognize him. No suit this time, just dark jeans and a simple gray sweater that somehow made him look more approachable, less intimidating. He spotted me immediately and smiled, and I felt something flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with the baby. Hi, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. You look beautiful. I glanced down at my worn flannel shirt and maternity jeans. I look tired. You look beautiful, he repeated firmly. Pregnancy suits you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just grabbed my menu. We ordered pasta for me with extra garlic bread, chicken parmesan for him, and then sat in slightly awkward silence until the food arrived. Tell me about your work, he finally said. You mentioned graphic design. It was such a normal question that I found myself relaxing. Yeah. Freelance, mostly. Logos, website designs. The occasional advertisement commission. It's not steady income, but I love it. Do you have a portfolio? I pulled up my website on my phone, watching nervously as he scrolled through my designs. His expression grew more impressed with each image. Avery, these are incredible, he said, looking up at me with genuine admiration. The color theory, the composition, you're really talented. Why are you doing freelance work instead of working for an agency? I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Nobody wants to hire a pregnant omega. Too much liability, too many assumptions about whether I'll be reliable. That's their loss. He set my phone down carefully. My company is about to launch a rebrand. New logo, new website, complete visual overhaul. I want to hire you. No, I said immediately. He blinked. No, I don't want charity or pity jobs just because I'm carrying your baby. This isn't charity, he interrupted. I'm serious about the rebrand, and your work is exactly what I'm looking for. I'll pay industry standard rates. Actually, I'll pay above industry rates because you're worth it. If you want references, I can provide them. If you want a contract lawyer to review everything before you sign, I'll pay for that too. I studied his face, looking for any sign he was just humoring me. All I saw was sincerity. I'll think about it, I finally said. Fair enough. He smiled. Now tell me about you. Not your work, not the pregnancy, you. What do you like to do? What makes you happy? No one had asked me that in so long that I actually had to think about it. I like reading, I said slowly. Old sci-fi novels, mostly. And I used to paint before I got too busy with work. Watercolors. What kind of subjects? Landscapes, mostly. Places I've never been but want to see someday. I felt myself relaxing more, drawn in by his genuine interest. What about you? What does the powerful alpha chairman do when he's not intimidating people at banks? He laughed, a real warm sound that made me smile despite myself. I restore vintage motorcycles. And I read too, though my taste runs more toward historical non-fiction. And I cook. You cook? My mother insisted every alpha should know how to take care of their omega properly. He paused. That came out wrong. I didn't mean to assume. It's okay, I said, surprising myself. I know what you meant. The conversation flowed more naturally after that, touching on everything from favorite movies to childhood memories. By the time we finished eating, I realized I'd been there for nearly 3 hours and hadn't once felt uncomfortable or judged. As we left the restaurant, Ashford walked me toward my apartment building. When we reached my door, he stopped. Thank you for tonight, he said softly. For letting me get to know you. Thank you for dinner. I hesitated, then added, and for not being what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd try to control me. Tell me what to do, how to act. Use the baby as leverage. His expression tightened. I would never. You're not some possession to be managed, Avery. You're a person. An incredibly strong, talented, brave person who deserves to be treated with respect. Those words hit something deep inside me. Before I could stop myself, I was blinking back tears. Hey, he said, concerned. Did I say something wrong? No, you said something right. That's the problem. I wiped at my eyes. I'm not used to that. He looked like he wanted to hug me but held back, respecting my boundaries. Get used to it, because as long as you let me be part of your life, you're gonna hear it regularly. I laughed wetly. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. The next morning, my phone rang while I was hunched over the toilet, fighting another wave of nausea. Unknown number, but somehow I knew exactly who it was. Hello? I answered, my voice rough from being sick. Avery. Just hearing Ashford say my name made something flutter in my chest. I hope I'm not calling too early. No, it's fine. I leaned back against the bathroom wall, exhausted, just dealing with some morning sickness. There was a pause. You sound terrible. Are you alone right now? I almost laughed at how quickly he'd picked up on it. Yeah, but I'm okay. This is pretty normal. I'm coming over. What? No, you don't have to. Please, Avery. Let me help. I can bring ginger tea, crackers, whatever you need. I don't like the thought of you handling this by yourself. His concern was genuine. I could hear it in every word. And the truth was, being alone during these rough mornings was getting harder to handle. Pride warred with practicality, and practicality won. Okay, I said quietly, then gave him my address. He arrived 30 minutes later carrying multiple bags from what looked like an expensive organic grocery store. When I opened the door, I was struck again by how different he looked in casual clothes, jeans and a dark green Henley that made his eyes seem even more intense. I wasn't sure what would help, so I got options, he said, unpacking containers of homemade soup, a thermos of ginger tea, several types of crackers and fresh bread. There says peppermint tea if ginger doesn't work, and these compression wristbands that supposedly help with nausea. I stared at the spread on my tiny kitchen counter. You researched pregnancy remedies? Of course I did. He looked almost embarrassed. I've been reading everything I can find. Books, medical journals, pregnancy forums. I want to understand what you're going through. Something warm unfurled in my chest, dangerous and tempting. Thank you. Really. As I sipped the ginger tea, which actually did help, Ashford's gaze traveled around my studio apartment. I saw it through his eyes. The peeling paint, the ancient radiator that clanked but barely produced heat, the window that didn't quite seal properly, the water stain on the ceiling from a leak 2 floors up. How long have you lived here? He asked carefully. About a year, since Kyle and I broke up. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. It's what I could afford on my own. His jaw tightened. Avery, this isn't safe. That radiator looks like it could give out any day. And winter's coming. The insulation is clearly inadequate, and I can see mold starting in that corner. I know. I cut him off. Defensive. But it's mine. I'm making it work. You shouldn't have to just make it work. He moved closer but didn't crowd me. I have a penthouse with 3 bedrooms. The guest suite is sitting empty. You could stay there, see space, complete privacy, proper heating and security, just until the baby comes at minimum. That's too much. It's practical, he countered. Think about the baby, if not yourself. They need a safe, warm environment. So do you, especially in your 3rd trimester. I wanted to argue, wanted to cling to my independence. But he was right. This apartment was barely adequate for me alone, and adding a newborn to the equation was terrifying. Trial period, I finally said. 1 week. If it doesn't work out, I come back here. No arguments. His relief was palpable. 1 week. I promise you'll have complete autonomy. Your own space, your own schedule. I won't hover or make demands. 2 days later, I stood in the guest suite of Ashford's penthouse, feeling like I'd stepped into a different world. The room was larger than my entire apartment, with a king-sized bed that looked like sleeping on a cloud, an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub, and a walk-in closet that echoed when I stepped inside. Is this okay? Ashford asked from the doorway, respecting the invisible boundary. If you need anything changed, it's perfect, I admitted. Almost too perfect. I feel like I'm going to break something expensive just by existing here. He smiled. Nothing here is more valuable than your comfort and safety. Make yourself at home. Truly. That first week was strange. Ashford kept his word about respecting boundaries. He never entered my room without permission. Never made me feel obligated to spend time with him. But he was also incredibly attentive in subtle ways. There was always fresh decaf coffee waiting in the morning. The kitchen was stocked with foods I'd mentioned liking. He'd leave little notes, fresh croissants in the oven, help yourself, or doctor's appointment reminder on the calendar. We fell into an easy routine. I'd work on design projects in my room or the study he'd set aside for me. He'd go to the office but always came home for lunch, just to check that I was eating and feeling okay. Evenings we'd cook together, or rather he'd cook while I supervised and taste tested, since my culinary skills were limited to microwave dinners and toast. My mother taught me, he explained one night while making some kind of complicated pasta dish. She said that caring for someone meant learning their tastes, their preferences, what made them feel loved through food. That's sweet. I watched him work, noting the practiced ease of his movements. My parents weren't big on teaching life skills, more focused on making sure I understood how disappointing I was. His hand stilled on the knife. Disappointing? Being Omega wasn't in their plans for me. They wanted a beta son who'd take over the family business. Instead they got me, and they never let me forget it wasn't what they wanted. I shrugged, trying to play it off. Classic secondary gender disappointment story. That's not disappointment. That's cruelty. He set down the knife and turned to face me. You are not a disappointment, Avery. You're talented, strong, resilient. Any parent should be proud to have you. The conviction in his voice made my throat tight. You barely know me, then let me know you better. Tell me about your childhood. Your dreams. What makes you happy? So I did. Over pasta and wine, sparkling cider for me. I told him about the books I'd loved as a kid, the art classes I'd taken in secret, the design scholarship I'd won that my parents had dismissed as a waste of time. He listened to every word like it mattered. Like I mattered. I want to open my own studio someday, I admitted. A place where other Omegas can work without facing discrimination. Where talent matters more than secondary gender or family connections. You will, he said with absolute certainty. I'll help however I can, but I know you'll do it regardless. You're that determined. Later that night we were watching a movie on his ridiculously comfortable couch, when the baby kicked hard enough to make me gasp. What's wrong? Ashford was immediately alert, moving closer. Are you in pain? No, just the baby's being active tonight. I pressed my hand to the spot where tiny feet were pushing against my skin. Can I? He hesitated, looking almost shy. Would it be okay if I felt? I nodded, taking his hand and placing it where the baby was moving. For a moment nothing happened, and then another strong kick right against his palm. The expression on Ashford's face was something I'd never forget. Pure wonder, like he was witnessing a miracle. His eyes got suspiciously shiny. That's incredible, he whispered. They're so strong already. Takes after their father, apparently. He looked up at me and something shifted in the air between us. His hand was still on my stomach, warm and gentle. We were closer than we'd been since that night months ago. Close enough that I could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes. Avery, he started. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He cursed under his breath but pulled it out, glancing at the screen. His expression immediately closed off. I should take this, he said, standing and walking toward his study. Catherine, I told you not to call me Catherine. The name hit me like cold water. I watched him disappear into the other room, heard his voice rise in frustration, heard him say her name again with familiar exasperation. The woman who felt comfortable calling him late at night. The woman whose calls he took despite clearly not wanting to. I stood up, suddenly feeling sick for reasons that had nothing to do with pregnancy. Here I was, getting comfortable, starting to believe in fairy tales, while he had someone else in his life. Someone important enough to warrant interrupted evenings and tense phone conversations. I walked to my room and closed the door, wondering when I'd learn to stop trusting alphas who seemed too good to be true. I heard Ashford call my name, heard him knock on my door 10 minutes later, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Instead, I lay on the massive bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling stupid and used and tired of my own gullibility. Avery, please. His voice came through the door, strained. I need to explain about Catherine. You don't owe me explanations. I called back, keeping my voice steady. This isn't a relationship. I'm just staying here temporarily. That's not, damn it. There was a thump, like he'd pressed his forehead against the door. She's my ex-fiancée. It was a business arrangement my father set up before he died. I ended it 2 weeks ago, right after I met you at the bank. I sat up slowly. 2 weeks ago? You've only known about the baby for 2 weeks and you ended an engagement over it. Not because of the baby. His voice was urgent now. Because of you. The second I saw you, the second I realized who you were. The person I'd been searching for all these months. I knew I couldn't stay in that fake engagement. It wouldn't have been fair to Catherine and it wouldn't have been fair to myself. I got up and opened the door. He stood there looking wrecked, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. 'Cause I'm an idiot who thought he was protecting you. He stepped back, giving me space. I didn't want to stress you out with my messy personal life when you were already dealing with so much. But that was wrong. You deserve to know. Yes. I did. I crossed my arms, trying to protect myself even as I wanted to believe him. What did she want tonight? To convince me to reconsider. Her family is threatening to sue over the broken contract. She thinks if she can just make me see reason, I'll come back. He pulled out his phone, pulling up his contacts. Watch. He found Catherine's name and blocked it right in front of me, then deleted the number entirely. She's been calling from different numbers, he explained. I should have blocked her everywhere already. I will right now. Social media, email, everything. She won't be able to contact me again. I watched him systematically cut off every avenue of communication, his jaw set with determination. When he finished, he looked at me with raw honesty. I don't want her. I never did. It was duty and family obligation, nothing more. What I feel for you. He trailed off, then started again. From that first night in the hotel, you've been all I could think about. Finding you again felt like getting a second chance at something I didn't even know I needed. This is crazy, I whispered. People don't fall for each other like this. Not really, maybe not most people. But I did. He took a careful step closer. I understand if you can't trust that yet. I understand if you need time or space or proof. I'll give you whatever you need. Just please don't shut me out. I wanted to protect myself, wanted to keep my walls up, but the vulnerability in his eyes, the way his hands were shaking slightly, he was as scared as I was. No more secrets, I said firmly. If we're going to try to make this work, whatever this is, I need complete honesty. Always, always. He agreed immediately. I swear it. Over the next few weeks, Ashford proved his words with actions. He was transparent about everything. Business calls, meetings, even his therapy sessions that he'd started to process his father's death and the pressure of the family business. He included me in decisions, asked my opinion, treated my input as valuable. My design work started taking off too. The rebrand project for his company led to referrals, and soon I had more clients than I could handle. Ashford celebrated every new contract like it was his own success, and helped me set up proper invoicing and contracts without ever being condescending. You're building something real, he told me one evening, looking at my growing portfolio. Your own business, your own reputation. I'm so proud of you. Those words meant everything. Nobody had ever been proud of me before. We grew closer naturally, spending evenings talking about everything from philosophy to favorite childhood movies. He told me about his mother, who died when he was 15, and how he still used her recipes. I told him about the art teacher who'd been the only one to encourage my creativity, who'd helped me apply to design schools behind my parents' backs. One night while he was cooking dinner, some complicated French dish he'd learned from a chef friend, I found myself just watching him. The way he moved around the kitchen with confidence, the way he hummed under his breath, the way he'd occasionally glance over and smile at me. What? He asked, catching me staring. Nothing. Just thinking about how different you are from what I expected. Different how? More real, less alpha posturing and more just you. I stood up, moving closer. I like it. I like you. His eyes darkened with something that made my stomach flip. I like you too. More than like, if I'm being honest. How much more? I asked. Suddenly bold. He set down the spatula and turned to face me fully. Avery, I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I've been falling since that first night. And seeing you again just made me fall harder. The way you laugh at bad jokes. The way you get so focused on your work you forget to eat. The way you talk to the baby when you think I'm not listening. Everything about you just makes me want more. My breath caught. That's fast. I know, and you don't have to say anything back. But I needed you to know how I feel. Instead of answering with words, I stepped forward and kissed him. He froze for half a second. Then his arms came around me carefully like I was something precious. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when I pressed closer it deepened into something that made my toes curl. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you too, I whispered. I'm terrified, but I do. His smile was brilliant. We can be terrified together. That night he carried me to his bedroom, not the guest room, and made love to me with a tenderness that brought tears to my eyes. Every touch was worship. Every kiss a promise. Afterwards, lying tangled together with his hand on my belly, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe, wanted, home. Stay, he murmured sleepily. Not just for a week, stay forever. Forever is a long time. I teased gently, not long enough. He kissed my temple. Marry me, Avery. Not now, not until you're ready. But someday. Officially. Permanently. I turned to look at him, this alpha who'd turned my entire world upside down in the best possible way. Ask me again after the baby's born, I said. When you know what you're really signing up for. I already know. His eyes were serious. I'm signing up for you, for us, for a lifetime of mornings and arguments and laughter and growing old together. That's what I want. Then yes, I said. Someday, yes. The next few weeks were blissful in a way I'd never experienced. Ashford and I moved through life like we'd been together for years instead of weeks. He started taking me to his business events, introducing me proudly as his partner, never hiding our relationship despite some raised eyebrows about the pregnant omega on his arm. Let them stare, he'd whisper, keeping my hand firmly in his. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I want everyone to know it. My design business continued to flourish. With Ashford's connections and my talent, I was landing major corporate clients and starting to make real money enough that I'd already started a savings account for the baby and begun paying Ashford rent. Despite his protests, this is my home too now, I'd argued. I'm contributing, You're carrying our child. That's contribution enough. Nice try. I'm paying rent. We'd compromised. I paid a token amount that made me feel independent while he used it to set up a college fund for the baby. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. I should have known something would go wrong. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd gone to Ashford's office to surprise him with lunch from his favorite deli. Excited to see him between meetings. The receptionist waved me through. I was familiar enough now that I didn't need to check in. But as I approached his office, I heard voices. His and a woman's. You're making a mistake that will ruin everything you've built, the woman was saying. Catherine. I recognized her voice from that phone call weeks ago. I stopped just outside the door, heart pounding. The only mistake I made was staying engaged to you as long as I did. Ashford replied, his voice cold. That Omega has trapped you. Can't you see it? The baby, the helpless act, moving into your home, it's textbook manipulation. Avery isn't manipulating anyone. What we have is real. Real? Catherine laughed, sharp and cruel. You've known him for barely 2 months. You're infatuated with the idea of playing hero to a struggling Omega. But what happens when reality sets in? When there's a screaming baby and sleepless nights and stretch marks? I suggest you stop talking right now. Ashford's voice dropped to a dangerous register I'd never heard before. You don't know anything about Avery or our relationship. I know more than you think. Her voice turned smug. I had him investigated. Did you know about his medical history? His doctor told him years ago that he'd have difficulty conceiving naturally. The odds of him getting pregnant from a single encounter are astronomically low. My blood ran cold. Get out of my office. I'm just saying, are you sure that baby is yours? Or did he see an opportunity with a wealthy, grieving alpha? And I pushed the door open. Both of them turned. Catherine looked triumphant. Ashford looked horrified. You had me investigated? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage coursing through me. You went through my private medical records? Catherine's smile was poison. Due diligence. Someone had to protect Ashford from gold diggers. Get out. I moved fully into the room, every protective instinct I had for my baby roaring to life. Get out, before I have you arrested for violating medical privacy laws. Excuse me? She looked genuinely surprised that I was pushing back. HIPAA violations are federal offenses. My medical records are protected. Whatever investigator you hired to access them broke multiple laws. I pulled out my phone. I can have my lawyer on the line in 30 seconds. Want to see how fast your family's reputation crumbles when everyone finds out you hired someone to illegally access private medical information to harass a pregnant person? Her face went pale. You're bluffing. Try me. I held her gaze. I've dealt with people like you my whole life. People who think Omegas are weak, that we won't fight back. But I will fight, for myself and for my baby. So either leave voluntarily or leave in handcuffs. Your choice. She looked at Ashford, expecting him to intervene, to mediate. Instead, he moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. I believe Avery asked you to leave, he said quietly. Security will escort you out. And Catherine? If you contact either of us again, if you spread any rumors or cause any problems, I will personally ensure every door in this city closes to you and your family. Do we understand each other? She left without another word, but her heels clicked with fury on the marble floor. The second the door closed, I started shaking. Hey. Ashford pulled me into his arms. You're okay. She's gone. The medical records. I managed. It's true. My doctor said I probably couldn't conceive naturally. The odds were so low I'd stopped even thinking about it. When I found out I was pregnant, it was like a miracle I didn't deserve. Why didn't you tell me? There was no accusation in his voice, just gentle curiosity. Because I was afraid you'd doubt the baby was yours. That you'd think I was lying or that there was someone else. Tears were streaming down my face now, and maybe part of me was afraid that if you knew how unlikely this pregnancy was, you'd think I'd trapped you on purpose. Avery. He cupped my face in his hands, making me look at him. I've never doubted this baby is mine. Not for a second. I can smell it in your scent, in the baby's scent. Biology doesn't lie. And even if somehow the test was wrong, even if by some impossible chance this baby wasn't genetically mine, I'd still love them, because they're yours. You mean that? With everything in me. He kissed my forehead. This baby is a miracle. our miracle. The fact that you conceived despite the odds just makes it even more special. I collapsed against him, crying from relief and hormones and the sheer emotional exhaustion of the confrontation. 2 weeks later, at exactly 8 months pregnant, I went into labor. It wasn't like the movies. No dramatic water breaking or sudden contractions. Just a gradual tightening that grew more intense over the course of an afternoon. Ashford was calm and focused, timing contractions, driving me to the hospital, never leaving my side even when I screamed at him during the worst of the pain. "You're doing amazing," he kept saying, holding my hand through each contraction. "So strong. So brave. I'm so proud of you." 12 hours later, exhausted and sweaty and more depleted than I'd ever been, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Our baby crying. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, placing the small, perfect bundle on my chest. "Congratulations." I looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair, the small hands already reaching. He had Ashford's eyes, those same steel gray irises that had captivated me from the start. "Hi, baby," I whispered, crying happy tears. "I'm your dad, and that's your papa. We love you so much." Ashford was openly sobbing, touching the baby's hand with reverent gentleness. "He's perfect. You're both perfect. What should we name him?" I asked. We looked at each other and smiled, both thinking the same thing. "Ethan," we said in unison. "Ethan Kane Fletcher," Ashford added, then looked at me. "If that's okay, it's perfect." Life with a newborn was chaos. Ethan had impressive lungs and used them frequently, especially at 3 in the morning. But Ashford never complained. He changed diapers, did midnight feedings, rocked Ethan for hours when nothing else would calm him. One night, I found them in the nursery, Ashford in the rocking chair, Ethan asleep against his chest while he hummed softly. "You're good at this," I whispered. He looked up and smiled. "So are you. We make a good team." I moved to join them, curling into the chair beside Ashford, all 3 of us together. This was my family, my home, my future. Not the ending I'd expected when I'd walked into that bank all those months ago, humiliated and alone, but the beginning I'd never dared to hope for.